Whether you like to fish slow for catfish and bluegills or the high speed of a kingfish and a tuna, our guides are standing by with their weekly reports on what's biting and the inside techniques to catch them. This is the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Hello there, Texans, and thank you for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Brie Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, ready to bring you your captains and guides who are going to tell you how to beat the summer heat and hook up to your best summer catch yet. Rick, what's your best summer catch yet?
My best summer catch has been a giant permit, like a 40-pounder.
Way to go.
And saw him eat the crab 30 feet from the boat.
That's nice.
It was so
That's
awesome.
nice. My best summer catch yet has been my baby girl.
I know.
I haven't been out there yet, but I'll get out there. Don't you worry.
Hurry
All right, Rick, we've got quite the catch over at the CCA workbench. Dave, tell us what's going on over there today.
I was about to say my wife was my best catch.
Look at you.
This summer? You caught her this summer?
Baby beats wife every time, I guess.
Baby beats wife.
Yeah,
well,
baby
not all
beats
the
wife.
time.
We're going to talk about crimping.
Sounds good
Putting
to me.
crimps on. Crimps.
Crimping. All right. Our
Not to be mistaken for cramping in the summer.
Yeah.
Nope. We don't want that. Our Star Trek Middle Fresh Region guide, Matt Loescher, has Sam Rayburn, Toledo Bend, and Lake Livingston dialed in and is going to get you on them this weekend. So listen up. Matt, it was great seeing you at ICAST last week.
Great to see you guys too, Brie. I'm going to start out this week talking about Toledo Bend. Man, it's really hot over here. Believe it or not, it's actually hotter than Florida, I think. But the bass are biting a little bit. You know, the daytime bite is pretty tough. They're just really lethargic right now with this heat, not wanting to bite. But real late in the evenings and into the nighttime hours, I'm getting a lot of reports from guys catching them pretty good. If you get a calm day, these fish are schooling on the surface a little bit, so you can get some topwater action on like a walking bait, like a shad or a bluegill colored walking bait is usually pretty good. You know, right at that last light before dark, especially if it's calm. But then, you know, after dark, the worm is, as always, my go-to in the summer. You know, the worm is it's a great bait for fishing at night because it's a big profile. Those fish can hone in on it. And it's a dark-colored worm is what I like. You know, it's usually a black and blue or like a dark purple or even just a plain black is good. Just anything dark-colored and pretty good size. You know, something that moves a lot of water. You want to get out there where these fish are at, 15, 25 feet of water, and then sometimes throughout the night they'll kind of work their way up a little shallower. So just kind of stay with them as they go throughout the night, especially on the full moon. They tend to get a little shallower. But, hang out there in that offshore stuff, 15 to 25 with the big worm, and you should catch some good fish. You want to use big tackle for this. 17 to 25-pound test, fluorocarbon or monofilament is what you want to go with, and a big 7.5-foot heavy-action rod. Because, at any time you can catch the fish of a lifetime out here on Toledo Bend at night. So you want to be prepared for that. You don't want to come in with just a fish story. You want to have the fish to show off the pictures. So that's what the deal is on Toledo Bend. I'm going to move over to Sam Rayburn now, talking about black bass over there as well. The daytime bite's a little better over there thanks to some hydrilla. They've got a lot of hydrilla grass in that lake right now and about 5 to 10 foot of water. And even in the heat, those fish can bury up in that hydrilla, and you can still catch them. Especially early in the morning, you can get out there and throw a swim bait over the grass or a Texas rig worm. And then once that sun gets up, just look for those little irregularities in the grass. Anything like any kind of a sweet spot where you might have a little grass that's separated from the main mat, or like a creek channel that slings up against a good mat of grass. That's what's going to congregate those fish. So just look for something different in those acres of hydrilla, because those fish could be anywhere, but when you find them, they're usually going to be kind of grouped up, at least in an area together. So just when you find one, sit down there for a minute and just kind of fan cast around, because there's most likely going to be a lot more around there with him. And then with the big worm, I like a 10-inch redbud colored worm, 20-pound test line, because you're in pretty thick, heavy grass. And if you want to get real serious with them and catch them pretty good, want to try to catch a real big fish, grab a Stanley jig, that big nasty jig, and a 3/4 or 1 ounce and something like a bluegill color, and just drop it right down through that real thick matted vegetation, straight up and down underneath the boat. And you might pull a giant out of there. And then going down south, a little further toward Houston at Lake Livingston, I've been talking with Simon Cosper down there with Get the Net Guide Service, and he says the white bass are still on fire down there. They're catching limits of white bass daily with a few pretty good-sized hybrids mixed in. And the problem is the fish are a little nomadic this time of year. They're chasing bait all over the lake, but you can still catch them. You just got to burn a little gas and really watch your sonar. And he's using a little bit smaller profile baits to match the hatch right now. He's downsizing some. He's using 1/4 ounce and 3/4 ounce slab spoons and a little clear tiny torpedo. And that's what he's using to load the boat. But, just cruise around with your electronics. Look for those fish on your sonar. And if you'd like to get an idea of how this deal kind of works, you can get with these guys at LakeLivingstonCatch.com and get out there with them and see how it's done. I've got a photo there for you guys that Simon sent me of pretty good limit of white bass, and you can see those bigger hybrids that they've got mixed in. Those fish are a lot of fun to catch this time of year, so get out there and check them out.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for starting us off. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the middle fresh hot spots. Matt says bass at Toledo Bend are feeding at night on the worms. And then Sam Rayburn, they're feeding during the morning on worms and moving baits. And then white bass and hybrids are chasing spoons at Lake Livingston offshore, Brie.
All right, Rick. Hey, Middle Coast region, East Matagorda Bay, Port O'Connor, and Rockport are all looking good this weekend. So let's hear what Captain Bink Grimes has to say about them. Go for him, Bink.
I'll tell you what, our light north winds we had last week in July, it does nothing but make the surf right. We've been waiting for a while for these green tides to creep on the beach, and when it did last week, we caught a lot of large trout wade in the first gut. A lot of the boaters tossed baits in the first gut and really worked on trout around midday as the tides fell and eased off the beach. They start to stage on that second gut in about 5 foot of water. Most of the waders threw top waters like Skitterwalk and Super Spook and She Dogs early on the income and then switched to soft plastic. And then the live baiters crushed them early on live croakers. But those people that were throwing live shrimp didn't fare as well because there were loads and loads of those 6 to 8 count Charlie shrimp out there in the first gut. Those ones that you put on a skewer and barbecue, and those trout were just eating them up. And our Gulf shrimp season's open now, so we're getting a lot of those for table fare. And when the surf produces, so does the bay, and that often is the case. The boat traffic in the bay is light when the surf is flat, and that's what happened this week. And this was arguably probably the best week we've seen in all of 2018 for big trout. There's multiple trout, 8 to 8 pounds caught and released in East Matagorda Bay. Most were caught by waders, tots, and croakers, but those good old artificial guys like us duped a few girls on Super Spooks, Bass Assassins, and down south lures. Guy at least Warmke found trout to 30 inches, and he said he released close to a dozen big trout over 25 inches this week. Then the south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay has been up and down, according to Ray Sexton. Sand and grass flats closer to Port O'Connor Jetty and past Cavallo saw similar results on Sheep Up, Super Spook Juniors, and down south lures. And then Half Moon Reef, that reef in the middle of West Matagorda Bay, it's been on fire for drifters with live shrimp under a popping cork. Port O'Connor anglers have been enjoying consistent catches over San Antonio Bay Reef. Guy Lynn Smith said the topwater bite's been great early over sand and rafts and mullet. Later in the day, he's been throwing chicken on a chain, Bass Assassins, and about belly to chest deep water. And then over there in Seadrift, Harold Durachik of Bay Fat Slides, he's been taking trout on shell with croakers. They're wading the edges of the reef and catching good trout on topwaters and soft plastics as well. And then in Rockport, recent rains has really helped that system. They're catching them on croakers and piggy perch on the shell reef, but around Mud Island on that incoming tide, artificial guys are throwing Super Spook Juniors. Same holds true for Freeport and Surfside. They're whacking them at the jetties on live shrimp and on topwaters. And there's a photo there of Captain Tommy Alexander with a healthy East Matagorda Bay trout. He caught on that Lee spinning bait, but there's just been tons and tons of big trout caught this week. We'll go to redfish. Now, our redfish guys in Matagorda know when the water temperature is getting the upper 80s and our tides are 1 to 2 foot below normal, it's going to be tough. It's been tough right now, but I tell you that our best pattern lately has been drifting in the middle of East Matagorda Bay. All those redfish on the south shoreline have no choice but to fall off the shoreline when there's no water on it. So they fall off in that 3 to 4 foot of water, and we're drifting behind them looking for slick, throwing gulps, throwing topwaters, and was a really good bite over the weekend with multiple limits coming, just drifting open water for redfish. And at Rockport, those reds have been good on gold spoons while wading the shorelines, and the Seadrift anglers have caught redfish on the reefs with live shrimp. The jetty is another consistent player in July. Most of the fish are near the bottom and best on live baits on finger mullet, croaker, and large table shrimp. And then Gulf shrimp season reopened July 15th. There's a lot of jumbo whiteys out there on the beach. They've been riding the incoming tide. Man, those redfish are gobbling them up. We'll go offshore. Man, Freeport kingfish have been excellent over nearshore structure and state waters on sardines. Guide Mike Siegel said that floating sargassum are showing it's got a lot of chicken dolphin on it and got a lot of triple tail as well. And then Guide Michael Quebec said the wahoo and dorado are all over the weed line and about 200 foot of water. And those wahoo are eating those rigged ballyhoo and deep daubing rapala plugs. And swordfish action's been good. We able to get out there last week in about 80 miles out. A lot of tilefish out there. A lot of red snapper out there on the wreck. Just a lot of things getting eaten right now, and we're enjoying the good fishing.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Middle Coast region. Bink says inshore, Mid-Bay Reef and East Matagorda Bay have held trout to 30 inches while waiting with bass assassins and down south lures. The trout are good in Rockport over the shell and piggy perch with crocas using for those trout. And then offshore, kingfish are good behind the shrimp boats while trolling rapala baits will catch them if you're an artificial man, Brie.
Piggy perch on croakers.
Piggy
Sounds
perch.
good. All right, we're checking out what our Lower Coast region has to offer next here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. But first, we want to visit Dave Ferrell at CCA Workbench for rigs and techniques. We're just gonna crimp around, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We're going to learn how to get real heavy steel leaders and heavy monoliters attached
Sounds
properly.
good. Get our crimp on, right?
Yes.
I
Wow,
like it.
you're leaving me hanging.
Doesn't sound very exciting.
No, I'm done. I'm done walking away.
Yeah, I'm not used to all this mother stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, she's a mother.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Any fish, any water. Since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore four-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 four-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Outside is a bully. There are bears, screaming fleet-footed waters. Arrogant mountains. Goliaths. 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 And 100 other excuses to stay inside. But there are ways to deal with bullies.
CCA is the largest marine conservation group of its kind, with 70,000 members in Texas. CCA's mission is dedicated to conserve, promote, and enhance the present and future availability of our coastal resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the general public. So if you care about the health of our Texas coastal resources, join CCA today by going to their website, ccatexas.org, and help them make a difference. Use the promo code REDFISH to receive your free hat with your membership. CCA, the leader in marine conservation.
So welcome back to the CCA Workbench. And you know, Dave, crimping is not something that you typically know and understand inshore. You know, we tie everything on with a uni knot and we join braided lines with leaders and whatnot. But when you go big, whether it's for shark or whether it's marlin, whether it's kingfish, crimping is a must.
Well, you know, it's the way to go. You know, a lot of people ask you, why are you crimping it? Well, it's because when you're using real heavy stuff, like the 200-pound mono or so, it's kind of hard to tie a knot in it.
Correct.
You can tie a knot in it, but it's going to be a giant bulky knot, and it might not hold that well. When you start getting this really large diameter stuff, it gets tricky. So what we do is we use a crimp to get them. And there's different types of crimps. There's single barrel, which are kind of like these, these big aluminum ones here, which are a single barrel, which means it's just a tube. Just a tube. And then you've got these double barrel ones, which you see like this one.
Okay, hold on, wait. Let's get the single barrel first.
Get to look at the single barrels, which is a big tube, and those are good for monofilament.
Now this is
usually.
double barrel.
And these double barrel ones are more size to the line, but these are tiny.
So you
can see there's 2 barrels. These. Correct. Those are for wire and or mono that'll fit through the tubes.
And so typically you buy them for the size mono it's going in there.
Correct. It's very important. There's a little trick, but there's very important to use the size mono that matched your crimp, and vice versa. And a lot of times it's even more important to match the manufacturer with the leader and the crimp. Like, you have to have a Momoy crimp, a Momoy leader, and if you don't use those Momoy crimps on that Momoy leader, you might have a problem. There is a way to avoid all problems when crimping if you crimp correctly, and that is to use 2. If you always use 2, you will never have to worry about a crimp slipping. The main problems with crimp isn't that you do them too loose and one will break. What happens most of the time is people use a big bench crimper or a big double locking set that'll come down really hard. And if you're using the wrong crimp and that thing comes down too hard, your break will go like this. It's good, 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 and then it busts way down here because you've put it too tight. It'll slip, slip, slip and still hold, slip and slip and slip and still hold. But if you put it too tight, it'll get real, real tight and pop. It'll break easy. And you don't want to damage that stuff inside. And a good way to keep from damaging the stuff inside is to use a cheap tool.
A cheap crimping tool like this.
A cheap crimping tool. If you use one of those heavy bench ones or ones with all the adjustments on it, or even a good heavy, like a bolt cutter style with the articulate handle, so you can really put force on it. If you have just a little bit too much force on your crimp, it will fail. It will make the stuff inside fail. But if you use these little handheld ones and squeeze it as hard as you can, those handles will usually come together before you'll hurt 200, 400-pound monofilament.
So let's go through this process, Dave.
Right.
All right. So here's a crimp that hasn't been mashed.
Right. You've got it in there wrong immediately.
That's why I'm asking you.
Exactly.
See, what I'm saying is I want you to lead us through the right process.
Right. Well, the crimp should let go a little bit. The crimp should fit in both sides like that in the slot, and you should be able to see a little bit of the crimp poking out when you go to crimp it, because if you crimp it too close to the end,
then you mash it and crack it.
Well, what happened is you can mash it so far that you create an edge.
That cuts your line.
That can cut your line. And if you're back off, an 1/8 of an inch or even a 1/16 of an inch from the edge, and you crimp it down hard, what you'll have is a 45-degree angle where that crimp comes out.
I'm going to crimp this. I'm going to go ahead and mash it. Look,
yeah,
it's already mashed and closed,
right,
like so.
Right.
And then let's take a look at how it looks so far.
Right.
Did I do that correct?
Exactly. You've got it. It's flaring out at the end.
And now you're going to want to do that again, yes?
Right. You can do it if it's a long crimp. You can actually do it 3 times. You can do it once close to the end, once in the middle, and once close to the other end. I like to do both ends and then do the middle. Some guys like to do.
Is that how you do it?
That's how I like to do it.
Because that way you can divide it into a third.
Into thirds, easy, so I can see it. But also when you're going to use 2 crimps like this is how it's supposed to look too. See how that one's flared at the ends? All of them are flared at the ends. And when you put 2 crimps together, you want to make sure that you leave a good little gap in between, especially when using monofilament. If you put 2 crimps too close together and you squeeze them, it's like toothpaste in a tube. That material has to go somewhere. And if you've got the crimps too close together and you squeeze them both real tight together, that material is going to jam up in the middle and it'll make it a weak spot. This is what happens when you put the crimp in how you had it the first way. When you have it in sideways, you can see that it mashes in the middle and really crushes one side of the monofilament. You can tell the difference between the nice round barrel
and potentially
than the mash.
The side that really needs to be crimped could slip.
Correct.
Because there's not mashed on the side where the tag end is.
Correct. It would probably break in here before that would happen. And I tell you what, if you put 2 of them on here, that probably would still hold regardless. You know,
like
so,
good. Like
Correct.
this one.
Correct. That's a double one, and it would probably hold. Now, when you're using this cable, you also want to use, you know, when we're making rigging set hook sets and stuff, we want to use this big heavy cable, and you're going to use these kind of things. The most important thing when using this cable is using the proper cutter. See how that end is very, very fine?
Yeah.
It's because I'm using the right cutter. If you try to use one of the cutters on a pair of pliers or even one of these, it's not going to work. This will work. This is a cable cutter, and it's made to cut cable. And you can see the top groove, especially. Not even I wouldn't even use the bottom groove because it's too round. But the top groove actually makes a triangle shape. And if you can have that triangle come down on your cable, it'll make a nice clean cut. A Felco is a really good brand of cable cutter, a Felco.
I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you for, I mean, I'm so much smarter now, Brie. I know I don't
I
look
was going to
smarter.
say the same thing. You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm so much smarter, and we're all crimp skilled now. All right, this weekend is going to be hot, and so is the offshore and inshore bite in the lower coast region. So, Captain Kinney, if you would be so kind to give us further insight, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, everything's going great. Start out here, some little different report here. We got some jetty fishing action that's been really good out of like Port Aransas, Port Mansfield, South Padre, getting good reports from everything in there. And a deep drop in offshore has been good for, snapper so there, of course, but gag grouper, Warsaw grouper, scamp grouper, and the lower coast, and the billfish bites really good off of Jim's Peak out here. So we were in the inshore first. I'm going to get 1 inshore and then 3 offshore stuff. But the redfish have been showing up around the jetties, like I mentioned, around the lower coast, and also up in Baffin Bay. If you guys are going to Baffin Bay, like I said, with that fresh water last week, on my report a couple weeks ago when we had it, it's really kind of turned that thing on. So there's been a lot of slot redfish and some big bull redfish also around the jetties. Like I said, all 3 ports out of here like that. So look for the lighter wind conditions, though. If you get them, lighter winds, lower seas, always easier on your boat, better for water clarity, all the above like that for a better bite going on. Use a live croaker, worked real well. Live finger mullet worked really well. We 3-line those things, works good. Use a heavier pound mono, fish around those jetties. Use a 60 on up. And later in the season, I'll talk about it later, but go ahead and probably get something even heavier or some wire when the kingfish and tail start showing up. But then also, if you're fishing the bottom, try some cut mullet or fresh blue crab if you got that available. That works really well if you're hitting the bottom on there. And use it on the Carolina rig, like I said, about 60-pound mono. On that Carolina rig, go ahead and rig that with about a 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce egg weight, depending on current and everything else you're doing on there. If you're using some lures, use about a 3/4 inch jig head. Get a little bit heavier out there with a saltwater assassin sea shad. Those things work good. And just bump those off the bottom. So what you want to do is find that washout on the jetty where they're kind of moving in and out those jetties and throw it out there, pitch it in there, let it fall towards the bottom and kind of slowly bump it up and down and don't hit it usually on the fall there. We got a picture out of Baffin Bay there actually with a big old bull redfish with Bubba Reynolds and his clients are the personal best on that one.
Wow. That is a personal best, man. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I said sneaking up to the offshore, I'll be getting some trout reports here next week, but sneaking up to the offshore, deep drop and everything else has been really good on the lower coast. Billfish bite's been better around Jim's Peak and the Oasis Dome out there. The grouper fishing, like I said, has been really pretty good. I've been doing quite a bit of it. Guys are having a lot of fun. You can still catch your snapper in federal water, so it's kind of good to do this stuff. Try some heavier jigs. Drop down with like a 5-ounce Williamson Vortex jig. That'll still flutter and it'll work down there and will get good. You can add like the Z-Man mag swims to it, also like that. If you don't want to tip anything with it, use that. And then slowly jig it off the bottom. If you're grouper fishing, just kind of work it up slow, like the bottom 10 feet or so. Just kind of, up and down slow like that, kind of repeat it until you get that thump. And if you're using the jig and stuff artificial, give about 100 to 250, 200 pound fluorocarbon leader with your jig will work good like that. If you're fishing bait, then if bonita's good, I get some bonita bellies or whole bonita. Blue runners available. Fish structure in about 200 to 400 feet of water. If you're using those bigger baits, then rig up your stuff with a bigger circle hook. Get like a VMC, 12-aught, 14-aught, 5/10 strength. Get about 2 to 3 pounds of weight, and make sure you keep it on the bottom. You can't. I see guys when they drop it and they put it in the rod holder. If you're drifting, you got to constantly keep that thing on the bottom where the fish are going to be at. And then if you get a bite, also don't set the hook on that first bite. If you're fishing those bigger baits, you got to let them hit, and let them take it slowly, and maybe even feed them a little bit before you lock it up. When you do lock it up, just make sure you just start pulling them off the first 30 feet or 40 feet is the most important. Get them up off the bottom. And got a really good picture of a gag grouper. It's one of the better ones I've seen down here on the coast right here. It's a 25-pound gag grouper that Eric Kim caught. We just caught it a couple days ago.
There you are. All right, tell me about some tile fish, bub.
Yeah. And tile fish aren't an everyday trip on here like that, but if you're heading out deep, you can do some bill fish and do some other stuff. Try dropping down some tile fish. You got 1,000 to 1,100 feet on the bottom, like a 5-foot circle rig, works really well. Go ahead and hit that down the bottom. Use some braided line, either electric reels or standard, and go ahead and do those. That's just a good thing, and stop around and get some fish to eat on the way home. Got a picture of a tile fish here, a golden tile. That's a average tile fish you can expect there, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving over to the bill fishing, like I said, if you're doing that after the tile fishing or early in the morning, it's picked up around Jim's Peak and Oasis Dome. Look for weed lines or your bait like that. Sailfish, white marlin, blue marlin are in the mix there. Pull some dredges if you want to get some more strikes for like tails and whites. Put some lighter tackle dredges, some ballyhoo rig, and put some ballyhoo in the riggers. If you're going with some blues and stuff like that, put some bigger stuff, super plungers, chuggers, or stuff like that in the flat line. And make sure you got a good pair of release gloves on the boat. And Afro's what I've been using for years. That's the best one. Get a couple pairs extra on there. Got a picture of a white marlin that we had up hooked up down there, and you can tell by the dorsal fin on those whites, how it's kind of rounded right there.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Chad, thank you so much. We're going to take a look at the lower coast region hotspots. Chad says inshore, jetty fishing has been good out of Port Aransas, Port Mansfield, and South Padre for redfish. And then offshore, deep dropping has been good on the lower coast with billfish bites at Jim's Peak.
All right, Rick. Well, we talk about CCA every week, and while the CCA Texas Star Tournament is known mostly for its famous tagged redfish division, many anglers miss out on the prize of a lifetime by forgetting about the many other divisions. Many anglers scoff at the idea of putting a big slimy gaff top in their cooler, but would a Shoalwater 19 cat help change your mind? Or, Rick, how about a $25,000 or $50,000 scholarship for a young angler? Well, you guys need to check out startournament.org to get entered and info on the other divisions that they have available. How about
if you're not entered, you can't win.
Exactly. Not in it to win it. All right, we're hitting up the lower fresh and upper coast regions right here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report. So stay tuned, and remember, for all things fishing in Texas, visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and view and tag us on Instagram. We will be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there.
Master your most challenging offshore experience with confidence and ease with Yamaha Helmmaster. Precise, intuitive control on the open seas. Unrivaled ease for maneuvering and docking in port. And now SetPoint adds 3 new dimensions to boat control. Maintain boat position with Fish Point, or a position and heading with Stay Point, or a heading while you drift with Drift Point. Yamaha Helmmaster, now with SetPoint. Complete digital control for today's larger offshore boats.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
I'm here with Mr. Kokubo-san. Thank you so much for having us here and the testing that you guys are doing. I want to ask you, how many years did it take for this motor to come to market?
Oh, actually, we spent many times, at least beyond your expectation.
A lot longer than we expected, for sure. So now that the motor has been introduced, the XTO 425, how do you like it?
I love this motor. So because this motor has many new features: electric steering, direct injection, and Hellmaster system. So very nice future.
5.6 liter, guys. There's nothing that big out there on the market. Now, one last question. There's many applications for this motor. So where do you see it going, on what size boats?
I think bigger center console, cabin, and express. So not only quad, triple, twin application, but also single application like a bay boat.
Big bay boats.
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually be sending these out in the fall sometime soon. They'll be available at all the dealers. And what about the warranty?
5 years, of course.
5 years, of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
Well, thank you for all your dedication and hard work. Guys, remember this, a 32-foot center console was a big boat in 2002. Now, as you could tell, what size boats are we gonna have in 2025 or even 2030? It looks like to me, Yamaha's already ahead of the game.
You're
You
dying,
know, Brie,
I know, Rick.
to talk to the guy who developed that motor, he was in charge of that whole project for over 5 years.
Wow.
And to be able to pick his brain, it was just so cool to how we got to where we were. And it was really neat to be able to talk to him about the vision and, more importantly, what's coming in the future.
Yes,
which
you looked
I'm
like
not allowed to
a
say.
kid in a candy store.
Yep,
know, Rick?
it was just awesome.
All right, the Yeti Lower Fresh region is quite a region, and Matt Reed, the perfect guide to cover it. Also, Lake Falcon, Travis, Fayette County, Belton, or Canyon Lake are all calling your name this weekend. Then it's time to listen and learn. Let's hear it, Matt.
You ready to get this thing rolling?
Oh, we always are. Let's go.
Always, let's go. Well, I'm going to start it out with my personal favorite. Falcon Lake is on fire right now. You can catch them on the upper end of the lake on the shallow hardwood, flipping saltworm type baits in dark colors because the water is not clear up there. They're also biting spinnerbait around that hardwood in that shallow water. My favorite pattern that's going on though is from the mid to lower lake. In that 15 to 20 foot of water, there's a ton of big fish right now relating to the rock ledges and rock humps. You want to throw a 3/4 ounce football jig and sour pumpkin, which is kind of green pumpkin purple, or a stand-up jig head with a big worm on it to really generate some big fish. The Azuma Z-Boss 20 crankbait and Moon Glow and Hot Mess, which are chartreuse shades, have done a great job catching some big fish lately. So get down to Falcon. Water's low, weather's hot, but the fishing is also. Going to move on up to Fayette County. It's been really good this week. Really good numbers of slot fish in that slot limit they have there, fish between 2 and 4 pounds, congregated on the offshore humps and ledges. Biting the Carolina rig with green pumpkin color soft plastics. Also catching quite a few fish on a 1 ounce spinnerbait. Throw that big spinnerbait out, let it go all the way to the bottom, and slow roll it back. There's been a little bit of schooling activity getting started. Hopefully that'll get better as the summer goes on. It's always fun to catch those fish busting on the surface. Lake Travis in the Austin area is still producing some good fish. Numbers are down a little bit, but the quality has gotten better as the numbers have gone down. You can catch those better fish on a head and one knocker spook topwater bait. You want to throw it right up to the shore on those bluff rock walls. Fish seem to be holding really close to the shore, so get on that bluff rock, throw the bait right up against the shore, and use the walk the dog type presentation, just walking it back towards you. Later in the day, you can catch some fish on a shaky head with a trick worm on it. You can also throw a Texas rig crawl worm, and you can get some good bites after the sun comes up. Those fish are hiding in the shade of the trees and also some around the docks. There's still fish in the marinas, the docks that have really deep water. Those fish are hiding under the shade in the boat slips. There's all kinds of cover there for them, so always fish under those marinas. You're going to slide on up to Lake Belton, kind of more in the central Texas area. It's been producing some great smallmouth action lately on top waters and small swim baits like the fluke, and that's happening really early in the morning down on the lower end. That lake's real clear, so that top water bite goes away fairly soon after the sun gets on the water. But later in the day, you can pick up some more fish on a trick worm Texas rigged, or a shaky head also works good in about 20 foot of water. Canyon Lake has got a real good early and late topwater bite going on right now. Small whopper plopper in a shad color has been getting those fish to blow up on top. They're also biting on small swim baits and Strike King caffeine shad in that clear, shallow water early and late. During the heat of the day, pick up a Carolina rig or a drop shot and get out on a main lake points in 15 to 30 foot of water. Those fish are biting natural colored soft plastics. Kind of the bonus that's going on there also, there are some smallmouths showing up. That's always fun to catch, brown fish mixed in. It's in a Zuma Z-Boss 10 crankbait and shad pattern and get out on the points in that 10 to 12 foot range that are near some really deep water. And there's a good chance you can catch you a smallmouth there at Canyon Lake.
Tell me about the kitty cats, man.
The catfish at Choke Canyon have been really good. They're on the river channel trees in 25 to 40 foot. They're loaded with fish. Get some chicken liver, some cheese bait, fish vertical. Let it go to the bottom, turn reel handle up one time. You can catch plenty of those channel cat in that 13 to 20 inch range.
And the stripers?
Canyon Lake is doling out the stripers right now. You can find them under the birds. Look for the birds. You'll find big schools of striper. A lot of fun to catch those fish on a spoon or a swim bait on a scrounger head, and that they will stretch your strength.
Tell me about the photo, Matt.
That's just a big old striper from Canyon Lake, caught real late in the evening when some of the last schooling activity was going on.
Well, that was a great, thorough report. We appreciate it very much from the Lower Fresh region. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots. Matt says that Falcon Lake largemouth bass are kicking butt, and there are some big fish being caught throwing spinner baits and soft plastics at the hardwood on the upper end. And then football jigs and crankbaits are catching giants on the rock structure mid-lake to the dam, Brie.
I don't know if you noticed, but
Kicking
that picture was taken at night because it has been hot during the day. All right, the Upper Coast region is now on deck with some inshore and offshore news that will secure that weekend bite for you. And Captain Caleb is here to report. Finish singing, Rick.
Take off all your clothes.
Okay, Captain Caleb, go ahead.
All right, Caleb.
Stop him.
Hey, that's it. Well, let's go ahead and start talking about these redfish. The redfish have been getting more consistent upstream around the upper Galveston Bay system and the San Jacinto River Basin. That whole region of the upper ship channel is lined with rock walls that hold redfish during the summer months. We've touched on this area before, but the action's going pretty strong right now. That whole Houston ship channel is 50 to 60 feet deep, so it holds a lot of fish and it produces a lot of current up and down these spoils. Whenever that tide gets going, these redfish will come out of the channel and hunt down bait that runs up and down the rocks on top of the spoils. These reds will move up and down these rocks all day, so using your trolling motor to cover a lot of water is key. Using a live shrimp about 2 feet underneath the popping cork is always going to produce bites, but for the guys wanting to throw lures, you can throw a variety of different things. A 4-inch gulp shrimp underneath the popping cork is always hard to beat when it comes to redfish. And throwing this rig right up against the rocks will produce bites. Throwing spinner baits, shallow diving crankbaits, and wake baits parallel to the rocks, like we do on the jetties, will also produce fish consistently as well. And always make sure that you're really careful whenever you're fishing around the ship channel. These tankers that go up and down the channel all day displace a lot of water and then throw a nasty wake if they're loaded down. So it's best just to idle out of that spoil area and get into the channel whenever a ship's coming by. You don't want to risk it out there. And then there's a picture there of a nice redfish from Galveston Bay with Captain Thomas Francis. And switching over to trout,
on a more serious note, the trout fishing has really slowed down here on the Galveston Bay complex. I've been getting a lot of emails and calls, about why the fishing has gotten so slow. And the reason is we just don't have the numbers of trout that we used to have. There's a lot of variables and issues, and honestly, it's about a 5-hour conversation worth of details. But the first is lack of habitat. After Hurricane Ike in 2008, the storm surge silted over half of our oysters. Prior to the storm, we had 24,000 acres of live oysters. And that storm surge covered up nearly 13,000 acres of oysters, leaving us with only half of our key habitat here. And then the drought from 2010 to 2014 brought in hypersaline bacteria that killed off most of the oysters and 100% of the Rangia clams, which are a big player up in Trinity Bay. The 3 years of flooding from 2015 to 2017, along with Hurricane Harvey, finished off the rest of the oysters. And Harvey's torrential floods also pushed the biomass of our fish out of the bay and into the Gulf, and they rode those long shore currents from the Mississippi River further west towards Binks region of Matagorda and Port O'Connor. Now, we still have fish, don't be discouraged, but not like we once had. Our slower days are much slower, and the good days now don't hold a candle to what we used to catch. We just have to fish smart and conservatively. The perception of killing everything we catch needs to change, and we as anglers need to come together. I encourage all you just to, keep enough for dinner and, and throw what you don't need back. And this kind of mentality is our only hope for seeing a proper rebound. And then going offshore, the triple tail action on the beachfront between Sabine and Galveston has turned on full speed whenever the weather's calm. These triple tail will come up into the shallower water this time of year to spawn, and you can see them sunbathing on top of the water in the 15 to 30-foot range. Of course, you can find them deeper and shallower, but this is always a good range just to focus on. Just come out of the jetties and cruise around, keeping your eyes open for these fish on top, and always make sure to check any piece of structure such as crab trap buoys, floating debris, or weed lines. They love to get underneath the shade of anything floating, so you can almost bet that there will be one lingering around. Pitching a free line live shrimp will produce the most bites whenever the fish are being picky, but whenever they do decide to eat and turn on, any type of soft plastic lure rigged on a very light 16-ounce jig head will work. You just have to throw something very lightweight that way it'll stay in the strike zone. And then there's a picture there of my buddy Brian Maley with a couple of really nice triple tail coming out of that beachfront. So you see there's some pretty good ones out there. And then, like we talked about last week, the weather got great and so did the offshore fishing. The winds have been down and almost everyone has enjoyed great catches. The red snapper bite is still going strong on virtually any type of structure, making it a consistent daily player. And the kingfish are still plentiful around structure, trolling Rapala magnums and sardines on a kingfish rig. The ling bite's still red hot like we talked about last week, sight casting them with bucktail jigs or live shad on any type of visible structure from the beach to 80 miles out. So there's a lot of ling to be caught. And Dorado has been very good on weed lines and trash, so always make sure to keep your eyes peeled for anything floating, because this is a surefire sign on some Dorado hanging around. And with it being so calm lately, a lot of the guys were able to get out deep to the floaters, report good boxes of blackfin tuna, throwing Williamson jigs and chunking. And, deep dropping on bottom structure has been producing good catches of grouper as well. So things are looking good for the offshore world, so now it's time to get out there and go get them.
All right, let's take a look at the CCA Upper Coast region hotspots. Inshore, redfish have been plentiful along the rocks off of the Houston Ship Channel, upstream of the upper Galveston Bay region, trolling down the rocks, throwing gulp shrimp under a cork, spinnerbaits, crankbaits, live shrimp under a cork has been good too. And then offshore, triple tails in the beachfront between Sabine and Galveston. Look for the fish on the top, sunbathing, and sight cast to them using freeline shrimp and light rig soft plastic. Check any of the floating structure that you might see, and they're gonna be laying under it.
All right, Rick, we've got your Upper Fresh Region report and Captain next, and we're also bringing you some fresh new products at the CCA workbench. Dave, what you catching over there?
Well,
Some
I'm
air?
not catching lunatics.
Butterflies? Fish?
No butterflies.
All right, we'll be right back.
We're going to tell you.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala. Catch the latest at rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. Startron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
When you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you, you want a Yamaha VMAX SHO behind you.
Just ask 2017 Toyota Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Brandon Polinick. He'll tell you, if you're an aspiring angler with big dreams and a VMAX SHO, there's no limit to what you can achieve. Light, fast, fuel-efficient V6 performance and Yamaha reliability that lets you focus on your game. Nothing pushes you like a Yamaha VMAX SHO.
And that's all we need. We need next quarter so we can keep on to everyone.
Yeah? Stop working right now! Look outside. Is this spreadsheet weather? No, it's not. This is fishing weather. So stop clicking, get out there, and catch a bass. Stop what you're doing and start fishing Rapala Ripstop.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Today's Power Pole Tip of the Week, we're going to discuss catching bait with the help of my power poles. I have a couple different styles of bait catching, and both of them my power poles assist me. First, on the grass flats in the bay, I'll use my power poles to stop the boat and keep it from pivoting. Then I'll begin to chum in front of my boat to bring the pilchards to the bow along with some pinfish. I'll throw my cast net a few times, bag my pilchards, put them in my live well, and go run my charter. My second method is what we call rodeo style, and we'll ride up and down the beach on the trolling motor looking for the pilchards, running down the beach, and I'm talking in a foot, 2 foot of water right along the beach. Once I've seen them, I'll throw the cast net on them. Using my foot switch, I'll lower the power poles, stopping the boat, bag the pilchards, put them in the live well. And that's today's Power Pole Tip of the Week.
Well, here we are at the CCA workbench, and we're talking about new
sir.
products over here. So let's get right into it, Dave.
Well, first we're going to start with these Bass Assassins. We got some new colors and the Ding Dong worms here. This is the Watermelon Red Magic, that color, which is, you know, a greenish color with the red fleck in it. You know, green is always a good color, so
green's a good color.
Why not? You know, the Ding Dong worms. The cool thing about the Ding Dong worm is you can leave this little joker attached and have a big paddle tail, or you can cut it all the way apart like that and have it be a little sweet little curly tail.
I like it also, because of the name. Because a Ding Dong like me could catch a fish on it.
Why not?
Right?
Yeah, we're gonna. I don't know what to say. Anyway, this is a blue and purple worm, right. Which is it's not called blue and purple. It's called the blank check, because when you're using a dark purple worm, you can just go ahead and write me the check, because that's what they're gonna eat. Just like the boys said, a nice big dark purple worm that moves a lot of water is gonna catch big fish.
I like it.
And that one does it right there. So Ding Dong worms with the new colors from Bass Assassin.
All right.
Next up, we've got this really cool. Now, we do a lot of really. We've done a lot of Band-Aid kits and stuff like that before, first aid kits in the past. But this is a really good. This is like a trauma kit, a saltwater trauma kit. It's an ultimate first aid kit. Comes from Critical Rescue. Each kit purchase also $20 goes to the CCA. But
nice.
Anyway, this thing has everything for the serious angler. It's got trauma scissors there, for EMT scissors to cut you out of stuff. It's got a thermal blanket, wound packing gauze, finger splits. It's got a Siloom stick in there.
This is a tourniquet?
It's got a tourniquet. I mean, this is just not for, you cut your little finger and put a little Band-Aid on it.
No, that's
you can save somebody's life with this gear in here. And it comes also in that beautiful Pelican case, which is waterproof and airproof and elephant proof. Really, the Pelican stuff is awesome. But everything they have in there, you got a big thing of hemostatic gauze. You can, everything you can. If somebody has a bad wound, you want to have this.
Packed.
Yeah, it's probably we're probably not going to get it all back in there, are we?
Sure we are.
We get a try.
We'll get it in there.
Yeah, Critical Rescue.
Critical Rescue.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Next, not the last, but we got some live targets here. These were a big hit at the ICAST show, and that right there is a croaker, the little croaker swim bait. It looks like a croaker.
Very popular in Texas.
You know, what can you say? It's got a little debris shield on there, the swim paddle tail. Everything will eat that. A big trout, a big redfish will love to eat that croaker. Also there they have a hollow-bodied shiner. Comes in 3 different sizes, 3 3/4 up to 5 3/8. That's a 4.5 inch size. Realistic profile, lifelike color pattern. That little sucker will scoot across the top of the water. You know, really, you can do it versatile, pop it or swim it. So, and it's also, they also have a really nice sardine, which is the same kind of deal. 3 different sizes. Again, that's a swimmer with a paddle tail, the oscillating tail they call it, and also has a little shield up in the front to keep your stuff from getting in the weeds. Really good stuff from Live Target.
Good job, Dave.
All right, man. No worries.
You know, those are impressive, but I'm still stuck on the Bass Assassin names. They always really impress me. I would love to sit around that round table and come up with one.
Yes, you would,
They're always
because
so good.
the food there is out of this world.
I've heard about the food. All right, we've made it through the state, and the Upper Fresh region is our last stop. So, Johnny, if you would be so kind, tell us what we can expect on the water this weekend.
We will. Hello, Rick and Bree. Well, the big bass here on Lake Fork, they decided to bite the last 2 weeks. They've been like 4 bass over 10 pounds weighed in at Lake Fork Marina. There's 1 over 11 and 1 over 12. The numbers and the quality of the largemouth bass here on Fork are showing up finally. It's been a strange summer, though. We've got a lot of bass still remaining shallow in that 10 to 15 foot range, but usually by the end of June and well into July, they've moved out to this 20 to 25 foot. The deep water structure fishing in that deeper water is where you find some of the biggest fish on Fork. They like to suspend in this deep water close to the underwater bridges, the points, the pond dams. We've got some road beds and a lot of underwater humps. Usually a couple times a day we'll find these bass moved up on these structure areas, and they're feeding on shad, bluegill, and crawfish. The electronics and the mapping that we have available from like Humminbird, Lowrance, and Garmin, it's easier now to find and locate those great fish holding areas, so a lot of people are hitting the good spots. We use the waypoints on the electronic mapping. You can easily come back and fish these great fish holding areas. If you use your down scan, side scan, it'll help you pick out the fish and the brush piles on this structure, and you'll actually see some fish as well. All this great technology has aided these anglers in finding the obvious honey holes, and you still have to determine then what's the best time to find the fish on them. Now that's where experience, knowledge, and good equipment comes in. What lures to use, how to present them to fish, and how to properly set up on these deep water spots separates the successful anglers from the others. This is where the good professional guide comes in. Lake Fork has a lot of excellent guides. They got the very best equipment, knowledge. In knowledge, they can teach you how to correctly use the lures and techniques to catch the big ones. You can learn all this on your own by putting time on the water, but one can become fairly efficient quickly by using a guide a few times and asking a lot of how and why. The past week, my trips produced a many bass over 5 to 7 pound range. I'm finally seeing the traditional structure spots start to produce numbers of big bass. Most of my customers have one goal, that's to catch a personal best, so that's what we target with baits and presentations that I like to use there. We can usually tell how quickly when we run electronics if there's any fish on the spot, but sometimes you don't see any, but you find the bait. When you do that, it's just a matter of time before the fish move up, so you have to hit a lot of spots a couple times a day till you find them up and feed them. A good guide has to determine what skill levels the experienced customer has, and then we got to tailor that equipment, technique, and presentation to that customer. Being able to use both spinning setup and casting rig allows the best chance to properly present your bait to the big bass and get them to bite. All this can be overwhelming to some, but with a little coaching and patience, the guide can help you get on some big fish quickly. Of all the latest and greatest fishing tools, equipment, absolutely the best thing to ever come out, in my opinion, is this new spot lock technology. Minn Kota's got a trolling motor out, that Ultrex, and being able to hold the boat in exact position is critical in catching these big fish. It allows the anglers to fish slowly on the exact location, position, and angle from the cast to make pinpoint presentations to the fish. So to me, that spot lock's a game changer when fishing deep open water. Here's some of the best lures and presentations going on the fork at this time. We got drop shot rigs, shaky heads, red bug color worms catching the most numbers, and some big ones. We got heavy football jigs, big flutter spoons, and some heavy swim baits are producing. Carolina rigging and watermelon red fluke are fishing a weightless flukes, also catching big ones when they're suspended. Big diving crankbaits are working good too, and also target big bass using bluegills live bait. And this is what most of my customers are catching most of the big fish on our trips here in July. I got a couple of pictures here from weighed in at Lake Fork Marina. I mentioned them earlier. One is 11.83 by a young man. And then shortly after that, the next day, in fact, here comes a guy comes in with a 12.16. So the big bass are biting and they're turning on Lake Fork.
All right, all right, Johnny, we're going to have to get to the hot spots. We're running out of time. Thank you so much. We'll take a look at the upper fresh region hot spots. Johnny says Lake Fork, big bass, crappie, and catfish are being caught daily. Red bug, shaky heads are the best for the bass, minnows best for crappies and stubbies, and then cheese baits are best for the kitty cats. And then Lake Gimler, bass fishing is fair on a watermelon brush, baby brush hog, and a shaky headworms. And then crappies good on minnows under bridges at night. Catfish bite has been a little slow, Brie.
There we have with them names again. Going
Man,
crazy with them
they got
names.
their own
All right,
language.
guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great weekend
Shake
on the
your
water,
head, shake your head.
shaking your head, catching them fish, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye.
Oh,
guys. Got it.